Hey guys, it's Vinil and today we're gonna learn the NCRT Class 8 History, Chapter 9, Women, Caste and Reform. So, before I start this chapter, let me give you a brief introduction to this chapter and what are the contents we're going to cover. The contents are that we'll learn about some socialist leaders who were against the practices, old practices and customs that were being followed for thousands and thousands of years by Brahmanas, and the caste system and all the movements that the people use to fight against these reforms. And the basic introduction is that this you can see this sati. The one main focus in this chapter is on women education, women against women discrimination, for women's rights and all these things. So let's get started. First, what does this mean? Women, caste and reform. It means women means the women who are the low caste and high caste both, caste, and reform. Reform means changes, reformation of something. So that's all this chapter is about. So here this image you can see is of Sati, painted by Balthazar Solvin in 1813. The Sati practice meant that if a husband died, the woman too had to die with him. So this they had to face a lot of stress and lot of hardships, and if they didn't, they were considered low, and they were not considered as human they were considered as inferior. And here it was also believed that if a woman was educated, then she would become a widow. So people did educate women and felt that, here it is written, in many parts of the country people believed that if a woman was educated, she would become a widow. So that's all about this paragraph. And now let's move here. Here it is given that discrimination between men and women, they were not allowed to go to temples and all the Atishudras and Shudras and all that things. The upper caste also treated many of these groups as untouchables, means if anyone touched, they would become polluted. They were considered as polluting caste, low caste. So here it is written, over the 19th century and 20th centuries, many of these norms and perceptions slowly changed. Let's see how this happens. And from the early 19th century, many reformers were there who were trying to change these practices. One such reformers was Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Here it is Raja Ram Mohan Roy from 1772 to 1833. He formed the Brahmo Samaj, and he felt that it was necessary for society to change itself. Ram Mohan Roy felt that the best way to ensure these old practices was to give up them and adopt a new way of life. So he also urged people to follow his movements and all that things. So let's move to the next page. So here is a photo of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. This is Raja Ram Mohan Roy, painted by Rembrandt Peale in 1833. And he was also keen to spread the knowledge of Western education, and he was fighting for the women's education. And as the people believed that if a woman went to schools, they would become corrupted, have a corrupting influence of them. The public places they crossed, that would have a corrupting influence of the women's, and they would leave their household activities and change their mindset. And also the higher caste felt that if the women were educated, they would become widows. And Ram Mohan Roy was in Sanskrit. He was a linguistic man, and he was an opponent of sati practice. And as you can see here, it is written in 1829 sati was banned. And then as Ram Mohan Roy adopted the strategy that whenever he wanted to challenge a practice, he would use the ancient texts to do it. So the same practice strategy was adopted by the Britishers, and all the reformers who wanted to change the current practices. Like if they wanted to change something, they would find a verse in the sacred or ancient text, and then they would fight for the current practices. So here you can see the strategy adopted by Ram Mohan Roy was used by later reformers as well. Whenever they wished to challenge a practice that seemed harmful, they tried to find a verse or sentence in an ancient sacred text that supported to their point of view. They then suggested that the practice as it existed at present was against early traditions. So as I told you, like that only. Here it is practice of hook swinging festival. It was very, very painful for people of the low caste. It is written here, in this popular festival, devotees underwent a peculiar form of suffering and part of ritual worship. They had this can see, these are the ropes, and a hook is pierced to the skin of the man, and they are swinging here. It is very painful. The Europeans considered them as the Indian customs and rituals as barbaric, and this was one of the rituals that came under the attack when the reformers began to criticize the rituals. And here we can see a paragraph of Ram Mohan Roy published in pamphlets, Advocate of Sati and Opponent of Sati. The advocate of Sati means for people who are willing to support Sati. They felt that women were without resolution, unworthy of trust. They were not trustworthy, and they were desired to follow their husbands everywhere. So after death also they had to follow their husband to the heaven, as they believed. And they told that the woman would try to escape from the blazing fire, so they tied them up so that they could not flee away from the fire. And as you can see, the opponent of Sati means Ram Mohan Roy and others. They said that how could you say that women are inferior or they have low understanding just because they are women, and if you are not educated them, then how can you say this? He also said that if after instruction in knowledge and wisdom, a person cannot comprehend or retain that what has been taught to him, we may consider him as deficient. But if you do not educate women, how can you see them as inferior? That's what he means. Here you can see Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar's paragraph. In this is not Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. This is Swami Dayanand Saraswati. This is Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and he said that widows could remarry, and he also used the same strategy as Ram Mohan Roy applied of using the ancient text to support his views. The society was criticizing him, and they even boycotted him out of his Samaj. And here it is written, by the second half of the 19th century, the movement in favor of widow remarriage spread to the other parts of the country. Means the widow remarriage movement now spread to the whole other parts of the country. And a man, Veer Salingam Panchuru, formed an association for widow remarriage. And Swami Dayanand Saraswati also supported the widow remarriage, and he formed an Arya Samaj. But as I told you, widow remarriage was not considered a ritual by the early men, and they felt that this was against their Hinduism, and this would make them Hinduism low. And so the widows who remarried were very less, and those who remarried were officially means not accepted in society, and the society continued to oppose the new laws. And the next is girls begin going to school. And as we have told you in this paragraph, the earlier people felt that girls would have a corrupting influence if they pass through public places, and it is written that they would also prevent it. The education for girls would also prevent them from doing the domestic duties. And so the people who wanted to train the women, educate the women, but like the fathers or the husbands, they taught them at home because they cannot send them to school, as people opposed them. So one such woman was Rasundara Devi. we read it about in last year that Sundara Devi was illiterate, but she learned to read and write under the flickering lights of the candles at night. She learned it secretly and got educated. And in the Muslim households also, the women were taught to read the Quran in Arabic. There were women's reformers such as Mumtaz Ali. They argued for women's education. They wanted women to get educated and modernize themselves. They were also a part of the humans. And then they began to write Urdu novels from the late 19th century. These novels firstly, primarily were meant to be encourage women to read and write, and about religion and domestic management in a language that they could understand. Here you can see a group of students, Hindu Mahila Vidyalaya in 1875. When girls' schools were first set up in 19th century, it was generally believed that the curriculum for girls ought to be less taxing than that of for boys. The Hindu Mahila Vidyalaya was one of the first institutions to provide girls with the kind of learning that was usual for boys at that time. And many people and women in the country who had been educated, like the Begums of Begums of Bhopal, also played a very good role in promoting the education for women. They founded primary school for girls at Aligarh, and women like Begum Rokeya Sakhawat Hussain also started schools for Muslim girls in Patna and Calcutta. It was told here that Begum Rokeya Sakhawat Hussain was fearless critic of conservative ideas. She felt that there should be a place for women and they should not be considered as inferior. So by the 1880s, women began to enter universities, enter colleges and get educated, and some of them also became doctors, some became teachers, and many other jobs they took up. And they also began to write and make the criticism against the women who were not educated. They said that women should be educated, and a woman, Tarabai Shinde, she wrote a book, Stri Purush Tulna, a comparison between men and women, criticizing the social differences between men and women. And she also told in this, a woman's husband has died. This paragraph I will tell you in short that here it was written, whenever a woman become a widow, then people considered, earlier also people, when the woman had not become widowed, the woman was considered as very low and almost like it was no human being. And after it got widowed, the situation changed very harsh. So she wrote that whenever a woman become a widow, the Baba would come and shave her heads. And the people, this means that she shut out from going to weddings, receptions and other auspicious occasions that married women go to. And why all these restrictions? Because her husband has died. She is unlucky. She was considered unlucky. Ill fate is written on her forehead. Her face is not to be seen. It's a bad omen. This is written in Stri Purush Tulna. And now, Pandita Ramabai was also a great scholar of Sanskrit. She was also oppressive towards the women who were treated very miserably. But also the upper caste women who were also treated very miserably. She founded a women's home for widows and taught them to be support themselves economically, so that they could live their lives. And by all these things, that all the reforms were there and all the laws changed, sati was banned, widow remarriage was promoted, the Orthodox Hindus and Orthodox Muslims felt that their religion was going down. They felt that this would corrupt Hindu culture and erode family values. So they also founded associations like Brahman Samaj and all that associations they found. They also wrote books, edited magazines, and here you can see, as you can see, by the end of 19th century, women themselves were actively working for reform. Means the women who were educated also worked for the reforms so that they could educate more women, and they edited the magazines, wrote about the women's ideas and all that things. Some of them joined various kind of nationalist and socialist movements. And in the 1900s, in the 20th century, they also leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose also supported the women and told them that they will get education, liberty, and all that equality and against the discrimination after the independence. Mean now also they will get, but after the independence they would get more of it. But till then they had to focus on the anti-British struggles. So now on next. Here you can see law against child marriage. In 1929, the Child Marriage Restraint Act was passed, and finally in this act, many violence was not there, and people they felt that this was the need of the society, so they didn't criticize this. As written here, this act was passed without the kind of bitter debates and struggles that the earlier laws had seen. And according to this act, the man below the age of 18 cannot marry, and woman below the age of 16 could marry. Below the age of 16 could not marry. So, and after that, after some time, subsequently, these limits were raised to 21 for men and 18 for women. So here you can see a child marriage, a child girl and child boy. They are married, bride at the age of 8. Very harsh situation they had to face. And now caste and social reform. Here it is written about the they wanted to abolish the caste system. People wanted to abolish the caste system. So Ram Mohan Roy translated an old Buddhist text critical to caste, so that they could support their caste against caste reform. And the Prarthana Samaj also believed in spiritual equality of all caste. In Bombay, the Paramhans Mandali was founded in 1840 to work for the abolition of caste. And many such mandalis were formed so that they could abolish the caste system. But it was very difficult for in that time to abolish the caste system, because the Brahmins were in power, and the majority of the upper caste people, they felt that this was against their religion. And so these children were equipped with some resources to make the changing world. Means the Christian missionaries here, the Christian missionaries also set up school for tribal people, and thus they helped the children to make their way into a changing world. At the same time, poor began leaving the villages to look up for jobs. They was work in factories, and many of them went to the plantations in Mauritius, Trinidad and all that, because they were very stressed due to the caste system in India, that they wanted to leave it and go to somewhere else. So they went to Mauritius, as there was no caste system there, and they could live freely there at least. But in India, they could not live freely. They had very, very oppressions on them. And here you can see a coolie ship in 19th century named John Allen. It carried the laborers to Mauritius. Now, who could produce shoes? This means the leather workers. They were considered also as untouchables, polluting, dirty. But in the First World War, there was need of shoes for the armies. So caste prejudice against leather work meant that only the traditional leather workers and shoemakers were ready to support army shoes. So they could ask for high prices and gain impressive profits. So these people did not gain profits in this world war because they were low caste, and only the high caste was allowed because there was prejudice in the society. So these high caste people were low, who means the higher caste than the low caste. People were low who were producing leather work. So they asked for profits and they gain and they become wealthy. Maligas were an important untouchable caste of the present day Andhra Pradesh. They were experts at cleaning hides, tanning them for use and sewing sandals. And here it is said that the army also opened the opportunities for low caste to get jobs in armies. And the father of B.R. Ambedkar, the leader of this movement, taught at an army school. And they also found, the people there also founded jobs in Mahar regiments and all that things. Now next page. Here you can see about one box is given here. The untouchables were not allowed in the classroom even. This is very strange. In the Bombay Presidency as late as 1829, untouchables were not allowed into even government schools. When some of them pressed hard for that right, they were allowed to sit on the veranda outside the classrooms and listen to the lessons without polluting the room where upper caste boys were taught. And this was also faced by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Same thing, he also had to sit outside the classroom and drink water from the pot for which the upper caste did not use. And though he got very educated and he went to out of the country to study when he got the fellowship. And here, demands for equality and justice. So here, in the demands for equality and justice, when people got educated, they felt that they demanded for the social equality and justice. So here you can Satnami movement in central India by Ghasidas. He was among the leather workers. He was of the low caste. He also fought for the equality and justice of their caste and the people who were of low caste. In eastern Bengal, Haridas Thakur's Matua sect worked among the Chandala cultivators. This Haridas questioned Brahmanical tests that supported the caste system. This means that these people were against the caste system. He argued that treating people unequally on the basis of caste differences. According to him, all humankind belong to the same caste. This was said by Sri Narayan Guru. This is the photograph of Sri Narayan Guru. And his famous statement, Oru Jati, Oru Matam, Oru Daivam Manushyan. This means that there is one caste, one religion and one God for humankind. And no caste system or religious diversities are there. There is only one person, one God and one caste of everyone. And all these sects were founded by leaders who came from non-Brahman caste. Means they were against the Brahmanism and the casteism and worked among them. They tried to change the habits and practices which provoked the contempt of dominant caste. They tried to create a sense of self-esteem among the subordinate caste. This they could do when they got educated and felt that there is a need for this to change the society and customs. This is the one of the most important person, a very great man who has changed what we can say that history of India. Means that he and his wife Savitribai Phule had supported the education for women and all the people of low caste. Without him, India could not have changed. And he wrote a book called Gulamgiri. As there was a civil war, American Civil War in 1873, before 10 years back, before 1873, means 1863. So he dedicated this book, Gulamgiri, it is written here, Gulamgiri, to all those people who had supported the against the slavery in America. And here it is written that one of the most vocal amongst the low caste leaders was Jyotirao Phule. Means he was also low caste. Born in 1827, he studied in Christian missionaries. He had his own ideas about against the Brahmins, and claimed that they were Aryans and who had dominated the low caste. They came from somewhere else outside the country, and then they fought and won the lands of the original inhabitants of the place, and they seized the rights and called themselves high caste and other people's low caste. He also said that before the Brahman rule, Aryans came into India, there was a golden age where warrior peasants tilled the land and ruled the Maratha countryside in just and fair ways. He proposed that Shudras, laboring caste, and Ati Shudras, untouchables, should unite to challenge caste discrimination. The Satya Shodak Samaj, an association, was founded by Phule, propagated caste equality. And here, me here and you over there. So, this means, this is written by Jyotirao Phule, and this means that he was against the Brahmins, as the Brahmins had cut the throat of people's prosperity by the sword, and they have hidden the sword, and they say that they are the patriots of the country. So he was against this, and they give this advice to our Shudra Muslim and Parsi youth that unless we put away all the quarreling amongst themselves, means that when they put the quarreling amongst themselves, they do not quarrel amongst themselves and come together, unite and fight for the rights, then only they will get justice and equality. So now next page. Now here we're going to see about some of the Jyotirao Phule's thought and Baba Ambedkar's thoughts, and lastly the E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar Periyar's thoughts. Here in 1927, Ambedkar said, "We now only want to go to the tank only to prove that, like others, we are also human beings." Means the people earlier were not allowed to go to low caste people were not allowed to go to temples and worship the gods, and drink water from the wells, and even not bathe in the ponds which the high caste bathe. So they said that the Hindu society should be reorganized on two main principles: equality and absence of casteism. This would prevent the low caste from being discriminated. And then who could enter the temples? Only the high caste could enter temples at a time. But Ambedkar felt that this should not be the thing. Everyone should be able to go to the temples to worship. So after finishing school, he got fellowship to go to the US for higher studies. On his return to India in 1919, he wrote extensively about upper caste power in contemporary society. In 1927, he started temple entry movement and many other movements. Between 1927 and 1935 he led. His aim was to make everyone see the power of caste prejudices within society. Means he wanted to tell that if the people were discriminated, what they could do, as they were caste prejudices within the society. And this is a photo of E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar, also called the Periyar. So the non-Brahman movement. In this, the thoughts and views of Periyar are shown. He also had the same views like Jyotirao Phule, and also felt that the Brahmins were the people who had come from the outside, and they had occupied the lands of the original inhabitants. And he also challenged the Brahmanical claims to power. And he came from middle class family, and interestingly he was ascetic in his early life, and he also was a scholar of Sanskrit. He joined the Congress, and he left it because when in a feast was organized for the nationalist leaders, and he found that there was a caste distinction in the seating arrangement. So he left the Congress, and convinced that untouchables had to fight for their dignity, Periyar founded a self-respect movement. He founded a self-respect movement so that people could gain equality and self-respect. So he argued that untouchables were the true upholders of an original Tamil and Dravidian culture which had been subjugated by the Brahmins. All this means that he was against Brahmins and their rule. He wanted a free country. He was also against the manuscripts, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, the ancient lawgiver. He told that these texts were used to establish the control of Brahmins over India. This was very, very wrong. But these assertions that his views did not go unchallenged. The people, the Orthodox Muslims, Hindus and other castes, higher castes, also made associations like Sanatan Dharma Sabhas, Bharat Dharma Mahamandal in North and Brahman Sabha in Bengal. The object of these associations was to uphold caste distinction as a cornerstone of Hinduism and show how this was sanctified by scripture. Debates and struggles over caste continued beyond the colonial period and are still going on in our own times. So basically all this chapter meant to say that caste system should be abolished and there should be equality, fraternity, liberty as considered in the constitution. There should be all of that among the people of a country. So that's what today's lesson is all about. So I hope you guys like this lesson. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.